We are Rogue Media Sports.
Oh, yeah. It's the Cam Show. Boy, this is almost distracting. It's really nice. It's a good new mic arm. Anyway, it's the Cam Show. It's Rogue Media Sports Network inside the Colt Brennan Memorial Studio. And big things are happening here at Rogue. Big time things. I am talking fiber guys working in the bathroom kind of big. Let that one ruminate for a second. Zach Burke is keeping us on the air. It is Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. And we actually had some breaking news during the show yesterday that I just didn't see because I'm an idiot. And I guess I'm an idiot for not looking on my phone during the show. But we did have some breaking news during the Cam Show that Kristaps Porzingis, about a month ahead of schedule, was back with the Celtics last night, making his season debut. He had been in Maine for like a week, working out with them, the Maine Celtics, formerly the Maine Red Claws, which, by the way, don't get me started. What a dumb rebrand to go to the Maine Celtics. I think that's really stupid, and the Red Claws rocked, but they do have some sick LL Bean jerseys. Anyway, Porzingis was supposed to come back around Christmas, or that was at least like the December, maybe Christmas kind of deadline that he had. Instead, he comes back a month before Christmas, November 25th. He is out there on the second night of a back-to-back in a game where you didn't have Luke Cornett or Al Horford. How much of that had to do with Porzingis being available, how much, Horford doesn't play back-to-backs, I don't know. But Porzingis is in there against a team that had won 5 in a row. And this guy, he just comes back and he's right back to form. We saw it in the finals. He didn't play for like a month and a half. He comes in and he takes ownership of game 1 of the finals. It looks like he's going to win finals MVP after one game. He crushed Dallas. And so we shouldn't be surprised that after 5 months, literally his first game since game 5 of the NBA finals, he plays 22 minutes, 16 points, 6 rebounds, 2 blocks, and a steal. And everyone talks about how much better Jaylen Brown looks when Porzingis is out there on the floor. He certainly looked the case last night. Doesn't put up crazy numbers, but doesn't play most of the fourth quarter. 17, 6, and 4, and was active in everything. I thought that was a good Jaylen Brown game after a couple of clunkers, a couple of shooting clunkers outside of that first quarter against Minnesota. So Porzingis comes back, and he's just Porzingis again. Porzingod. Like this Celtics team, it still should worry the rest of the league. I know we're all talking about Cleveland and how good has Golden State looked, and it's Cleveland and Golden State at the top of the conferences. It's just like 2017 all over again. No, Cleveland's a good team. Golden State's better than we thought, but this is the Celtics league, and they were playing shorthanded this whole year. And they didn't play with their full arsenal last night, but close to it as you're going to get probably, with no Al Horford on the second night of a back-to-back, but Porzingis back in there and just dominating like he never left. Golly, this guy, I know it's cliche at this point, but he is a unicorn, the unicorn. And what he does to complete this Celtics team is scary. Scary, man. And you saw it in the finals specifically. Like, I was talking with a buddy the other day. We talk Celtics all the time. And I was like, this is going to sound way too antiquated, old school, like you don't know ball kind of thing. But I think the Celtics are taking too many threes. Because last year, especially in the playoffs, like they had some games where they didn't shoot the ball all that well. But they won. They got to the paint, and more specifically, they got to the free throw line, and they were able to keep defenses on their toes with, Drew Holiday cuts and Derek White offensive rebounds and things like that, alley-oops to Horford and Porzingis. And those were the things that really stretched out the defenses for all of those three-point attempts. And this year, and specifically the last few games, I felt that coming on again. And then you get Kristaps Porzingis back. And it is all different now. Like that, as good a three-point shooter as Al Horford can be, like the way that Porzingis hits contested threes, that's what changes how you defend the Celtics. And again, you saw it last night. And a day after I'm talking about how they're taking too many threes, all they do is just set the record for three-pointers made in a single quarter. What they make? I think it was 16 in one quarter. Like that's nuts. 51 points for the quarter. Do the math on that. That's all but 3 of their points in the whole quarter. They had 51 points in the second quarter, and the Clippers had 49 at halftime. 78 in the first half because they didn't actually shoot the ball well in the first quarter. I was like, oh, here we go again. We're just going to have another one of these nights, which is whatever. The Celtics can still find ways to win, but, oh, man, they tied it. 12 three-pointers in one quarter. I gave them too much. 12 three-pointers in one quarter. They tied the NBA record. It's the second time they have tied a major NBA three-point record in a game this year and did not break it. But, man, I just got to think of what these Knicks fans and specifically these Mavericks fans think when they see Porzingis. Like what he did in the finals, obviously, for the Mavs fans in particular, but how he has taken this Celtics team to the next level. It's obviously not just Porzingis, but you look at that roster and how good it was in 2021-22 and 22-23, and they get rid of guys like Rob Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, Marcus Smart, add Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, and they go from a pretty damn good team, a championship contender, to a buzzsaw and a potential all-time team. So think of I talked about Jonnu Smith yesterday with the Patriots and how they couldn't find a way to use him. How do you think Dallas feels with like how could we not find a way to use Porzingis? But around here, around Mavericks country, they're like, oh, Porzingis was the problem. He didn't like Luka. He didn't want to play with Luka. And to be honest, obviously Luka's a great player, but I don't know how many guys are clamoring to play with Luka. I really don't. And what we needed to find out about Porzingis was that he's not necessarily the second guy on a championship team, but fits in really well as a third guy on a championship team. Like really, really well for a third guy on an all-time kind of championship team. But I've been hearing this a lot. I'm actually going to talk with Pete later on in the show about the NBA in general and what's going on with this league. I do want to ask Zach, who follows it a lot, his Rockets. You guys were some of the first to do this along with Golden State. Like, do you get bothered by the volume of threes? Because they had, I mean, the Celtics, I wish I had this. Like, the Celtics had a ridiculous stat in the first half of their game Sunday. That was like, they took like 20, they made like 20 threes and 4 twos.
Yeah.
Or something like 17-4.
I think the thing that I also found funny about last night's game, and you might have already said this and I just missed it, was the fact that they had 12 in the second quarter. And that was the entire amount of attempted threes the Clippers had for the whole first half.
The numbers go even dumber.
Yeah. It was something that as a Rockets fan, I got used to after a while, just knowing that, okay, they're just going to throw it up. I remember I can't remember the exact number out of hand, which is me not being a great fan, but the ridiculous amount of 3-pointers they shot up in that one game when Mike D'Antoni was still the coach. I think I just remember Eric Gordon talk like it's like, 30 something in one quarter. And the thing that he brings up with is he's like, what a lot of people
they didn't make any more than 12 in one quarter.
That's true. They didn't. But he was like,
that's the NBA record.
He's like, we were losing at the time too. So like, we're just going to keep chunking them up. Like that was just their whole thing was we're just going to score. It's the threes are better than twos.
Yep.
So if we can get them to fall, then ultimately we're going to outscore you just because we're going to get that one extra point. But there were nights where they would be so cold that they'd shoot themselves out of games. So
I'm gonna keep you in here for this because I found out last night. Apparently, it happened the other day. James Harden is now second all time in 3-pointers made.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's passed Ray Allen for second all time. He's comfortably behind Steph.
Yeah,
he's not going to catch Steph.
I didn't realize he was.
And he has more 3-pointers missed than Steph because he also has the most missed threes of all time. So I was thinking about this, right? Obviously, the Warriors changed the sport.
Yes.
Not just the NBA, like the sport of basketball and how it's played and how it's approached. But I think equally having a hand in that are those Rockets teams in the NBA sense, because like the Warriors did it. They put out positionless basketball and they had great shooters out there. What the Rockets did with D'Antoni was, why can't anyone be a 3-point shooter?
That's very true.
And it got, ridiculous around the league for a couple of years. It's still wild, but at least these big guys are better at it. Like Wemby hits threes.
Yeah.
Brook Lopez hits threes.
But there was a time where it was with those Rockets teams you're talking about. It was PJ Tucker out there.
Yeah.
He
could hit the corner one though.
He can. I'm not trying to.
I was watching the Celtics with Amir Johnson shooting threes. I'm like, no. This is bad for the league.
But it made the sense. Those teams like Trevor Ariza, who's a good 3-and-D guy, would make sense to do it. But then you'd have, I can't remember who'd come in and back him up. And it's the same plays. And you're like, you don't have the same range though. Like it was a lot of that, like you said, like anybody could heave it up. And I guess the thought process is, well, if he makes, 1 out of the 4 shots he takes, instead of making 1 out of 4 on the floor, that's 1 extra point we get.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess. Yeah. But I just think that was the kind of the opening the floodgates of like, hey, everyone can do this.
Yeah. Well, I think it made a bigger thing too. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
transitioning how like especially fives kind of play the game now. Like it was already getting away from, I grew up a lot of, I would say more just bigger physical big men. Not to say that
D'Antoni did not want Andre Drummond.
No, and that's the thing. He wanted guys. He wanted to spread the floor out. He wanted to
Dwight Howard.
Yeah, well, but he wanted to spread the floor out and he wanted these guys to play further away from the basket, which in turn kind of affected then how these big men play.
Mhm.
That along with everything else, but we've seen the transition, and I'm sure that the Warriors with the positionless basketball are kind of to blame for that in a way too.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Just as a fan, like, how do you feel about like watching Luka? How do you feel about a guy like Luka?
I think Luka is extremely talented. I think it's more so the team than him when it comes to that. I look at it and think that I don't know about winning a title there. Like, it's more so Dallas instead of Luka or the pieces around him. Like, you get a feeling about franchises where you're just like, I've kind of always had that about Dallas. Like, Mavericks fans can come at me, but that's fine. I've just always had
Both
that.
of them, yeah.
Yeah. That's not to say or to take away from to think that obviously him and that crew got them there to the finals. I think that he's very much going to be.
How do you feel about? Let me ask
Is
you
he
like this.
He's like another Giannis, and I mean different play styles, but
Let me ask you how do you feel about the way he plays?
there's
Watchability, aesthetic.
okay, fine. He's a fun player to watch. When he is on his game, it is really fun to watch him play because he can take over a game and just do some amazing stuff. That being said, I think I've seen better ball handlers. I think I've seen better shooters. Just if it like pure all that, he's just more of a package. I think he whines a little bit too much for my liking in some instances, but that's also a player to player basis. I can't say too much. I had James Harden on the Rockets forever who did the same thing of would just flop around and be like,
okay, because that's my follow-up question is you're a big James Harden guy.
mm-hmm.
How do you feel about his play style throughout his career?
He's very much a guy who he's one of the best ISO players I think that might have ever existed. One-on-one in his prime, not saying he is the best, but James Harden and his ability to score was unmatched there for a bit. But that's not to say that other players didn't get better or if you shut him down and you can kind of limit his game there. He's not necessarily the biggest hustler. He can't play defense to save his life.
I've seen, to be fair.
That's true. But I mean, like, as a Rockets fan, when he was there, I would watch compilations and just get so pissed off of like, he's not even on the right guy to not play defense on him. And he would like tell the other guy to like go over there and guard his player. So the defensive side of it always left much to be craved. But as a pure scorer, I think James Harden was always phenomenal at what he did. I mean, he's still essentially the only reason the Clippers have as much offense as they do right now.
Because I've watched him play last night, and I think he started this last year. I just like the way he plays more now and getting more guys involved.
He is better at that now.
I hated watching Harden play in Houston. Just hated it, man. The defense, the foul baiting, like that brings nothing to me. Yeah. Does it bring something to a team? Absolutely. Like if he scores, that's a good thing. Mike was kind of talking about this yesterday of like those guys that need to score 40 or else your team isn't successful.
Yeah. Well, James Harden in Houston was one of those. Yeah.
Close to that. I think more like a Trae Young in Atlanta or something like that. But like, I can't stand watching that. And I get some of the same stuff from Luka. Some of the same stuff. I don't think it's to the same extent.
I want to throw out.
I think either one, like you can argue, it's like, how much better do they make their teams?
Yeah, I want to argue just a little bit for Harden's sake. Is I think
go to the finals.
That him going to a team where there were actually more like he had to play with Kawhi, he had to play with Paul George, who is well. I'm just throwing him. I'm just
a couple times a year. Yeah,
true, but I'm saying like. Where he wasn't the biggest fish in the because that's the thing is when he was in Houston, it was, hey, you know what we need to win? Well, you just need to bring in Dwight. That's all we need. Yeah. So we trade everything off and we bring in Dwight. Oh, You know what? I was wrong about that. You know what we need? We need CP3. We just need another pass. We brought him in. Or the Rockets, not we. The Rockets brought him in.
Rogue Media Sports Network brought him in.
We brought him in. And I still believe that they are a Chris Paul injury away from defeating the Warriors there and making it to the finals. But losing him in that game 7 and the Warriors ended up winning either way. And then after Chris Paul and them started kind of headbutting, no. We needed Russell Westbrook in, who, by the way, is another guy that, especially later in his career, I feel got a lot of guff and a lot of hate for no reason. because I think he was actually really good for young players and helping them out. And I
Sure.
think a lot of people just thought
Problem
of
with
Russ
Russ
being Russ.
is the game changed around him, and he didn't keep up with it. Like just from a game standpoint, like he still can't shoot. Which there's something to respect about that. He's like, hey, this is my game.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep playing it. But it was some lean
He
years.
was,
You know what they really
he was a
needed?
good team player though.
Yeah, and there's no like Russ kind of has that like attitude that you see on TV that you're like, this guy's probably kind of a dick. But there's like nothing to back that up.
Yeah.
Everyone says he's the nicest guy, great teammate, all this stuff. And like, yeah, you see the teams he plays on and they get dysfunctional and you're like, man, this is the common denominator. But I mean, Houston was wild at the end there.
Yeah.
The Lakers are as toxic as you can get without really hearing about it. Like that's a clown show. So I don't know how this got into more Russell.
Well, no,
Westbrook. What they really needed was John Wall.
That's what I was going to close out. And then it was, no, we'll bring in John Wall. And you know what? Credit to
John Wall.
It was John Wall.
I don't want to live if I have to play for the team.
It was John Wall and it was Boogie for the brief minute he was there. Towards the end, where they called him out finally. They were like, we're showing up here at practice with all these young kids, and James off partying in France with the baby and showing up like overweight. And that's when he eventually, like, they shipped him out to Philadelphia and he got to be with Daryl. Oh, yeah, it was Brooklyn first. And then eventually we got to be back in Philadelphia with Daryl Morey. That's the thing. Daryl Morey did everything he could to get James Harden the pieces he wanted, and it just never worked out.
And so it turned out with Harden being Daryl Morey's a liar.
Exactly.
Like, to the
That's
kids,
what it is
he's
now.
like, he's the worst.
Even though Morey did everything he could. But now I think him not having that has affected James's game. Like, we're friends, I can call him James, but it's affected Harden's game, and you can kind of tell to get back around to it.
It makes me like feel very blessed with this team the Celtics have. God, that was terrible. It makes me feel blessed about the team the Celtics have. Like, truly, in that they have three guys who could have at one time or right now be considered like top 20 players in the league with the skill that they have. And two of them could be top 6 or 8.
Well,
but they're like, you know what? We don't need the MVPs. Like, we don't need that. Harden, it felt like, needed the MVP, needed the scoring title.
Well, the thing that I'll say about the Celtics that I like about their team too is that it's even the role guys after that. It's the guys like the Drew Holidays who I think add so much, or the Derek Whites, or the even Father Time Al Horford, who can go in and still at his age be able to.
We hear it every year. We're gonna hear it when the playoffs roll around. Like, Porzingis is gonna get nicked up with some injury, and people are gonna be like, who's going to be down there? Al Horford? It's like, yes, Al Horford's going to be there. Who's their ripper to Al Horford? Like, yeah, he'll do okay. Man, he's still the only guy that can guard Giannis. He shut Luka down in the finals when he was covering him, which wasn't a lot, but in game 1, he gave him fits. Like, Al Horford can still do it. Can still do it.
Al Horford's
an elite role player level. Elite role player.
Kind of like the how Vince was able to keep his, or Vince Carter was able to keep his career.
Kind of, yeah.
So long. Or like an Andre Iguodala who was able to find like
that's a
second.
Good one.
Yeah,
that's a good one. At one point, Andre Iguodala was like a franchise guy. He was the franchise guy with Philly, and they traded him to, was it Denver for Andrew Bynum?
Was it Denver? I know he was there with Melo and with AI. Like, he played with, AI might have been gone from Denver.
I might have the timeline wrong.
I'll look it up.
But I remember they traded him for Andrew Bynum. And I was like, what are you doing, dude? Like, Bynum is never healthy. Iguodala gives you something on both ends, and he plays 82 games. And that kind of thus began kind of the process. It wasn't like this is how we'll start it. It was, oh my God, Andrew Bynum cannot play. He cannot stay on the floor.
Yeah, he was traded to the Nuggets in a series of trades, also involving the Sixers, Lakers, and Magic. Other players involved in the deal included All-Stars Andrew Bynum and Dwight Howard. So I think that's also the deal.
Okay, so did that sent Dwight Howard to LA?
I believe so, yeah.
And the Lakers sent Bynum to Philly.
Yes, it's the 1 year.
Among other things.
It's Howard's 1 year in LA before he went to Houston.
That's the Steve Nash year. and the almost Chris Paul year.
That's
right.
I don't. It
I
might
think
be
that was
before
when
the
they got
league.
vetoed. Yeah.
Was it in 2013?
But
It
that
was-
would have been a trade deadline deal. So maybe it was afterwards. Maybe it was the year afterwards because Nash, I think, was only there a year or two. That was bad. Let's talk about a failed super team. Oof.
Yeah, well, it's very much like they tried
Oof.
again, like what they did with Karl Malone and Gary Payton and them there too.
Dude, can I mention one thing about Karl Malone before we get to break here?
Yeah, that's fine. 2011 was
Yeah,
the
that's
Chris
okay.
Years thing, by the way.
Okay.
So it was a
So
couple years
Nash
before
was
that.
backup. Okay.
Yeah.
Net backup plan. Okay. That makes sense. So I made a crude joke on Facebook yesterday, which I do sometimes. But it was some random Facebook page just putting up Karl Malone and his wife. And it was like, oh, such a sweet couple. They've been married 34 years now. And I commented something like, what does that make her? 48 or so? And
I mean,
so it's crude for sure.
yeah,
But like, let's highlight that Karl Malone is not a good person. Not a good person, right? And so I get some comments on it. And this one guy is like freaking out. He's like, did you follow up with the victim? I was like, what are you talking about? It's like the whole paragraph. Did you follow up? You're just making stuff up. You don't know anything. People will come out of the woodworks to get rich people. They're not going to do it to you because you're poor. And I'm like, well, you got that right. I am poor.
Yeah.
But like, this is a kind of a back and forth. Did like 3 of these, asking why I didn't mention Jerry Lee Lewis, even though it's a Karl Malone post.
Wait, what?
And I'm like, this is really weird. Like that. It was almost like a pushback against woke culture in a way of like, hey, let's hear both sides of things. But you're like really going really hard to defend like a known predator. Like this has been a story for 40 years. And he's also a complete dickbag, like out independent of that. And I'm like, why are you doing this kind of thing? Like, was my joke crude? Yeah, like sure.
Yeah.
And maybe you can come back and say like, hey, like that's not a fun thing to say like about a victim. Okay, I'll hear that out, even though I'm not talking about the victim. But to just like go out and defend this predator was very odd.
It is
Very odd.
And it's like the thing with Karl Malone is
Probably Karl Malone burner.
I get that as a player and like what he did on the floor is, you know, you can take it how you want to and talk about him as a player. But yeah, it is well documented to where the fact is that the one good story I've heard about Karl Malone is the one that stuck with me kind of more than anything in a weird way. Like, obviously,
Yeah.
I know everything you're referencing, but I remember in 3 Ring Circus by Jeff Pearlman, where he talks about where like Kobe was pissed off at the team, like after they lost like a Thanksgiving Day game and he was going to like storm out, and Karl Malone like went over and talked to him, and Kobe came back and was like, happy Thanksgiving, happy, and like went and made sure to like talk to all the
Now
players
you go
afterwards.
and wish them a happy
Exactly. It was something
Thanksgiving.
like that. Or it was Christmas something, but it was like Karl Malone pulling him in and be like, man, you need to like, you know, like there's the one thing of him showing Kobe be a better teammate and a little bit of better leader. And then everything else that I remember from that book is how he wanted more money from the Jazz and he didn't use any of that money to pay towards the stuff going on at, you know, Louisiana Tech and stuff. Like there's just so many other things.
He's an asshole, like a very well-known asshole who refers to himself in the third person, which is worse than almost any of the other things. Almost any of the other
That's
things
what
he's done.
what was it? Jimmy Kimmel used to always do the puppet where he would do Karl Malone as a puppet and he always spoke in.
Such an asshole.
Yeah.
Such an asshole. Anyway, I've got to catch you up on this new trend that I am geeking out about. And also,
Are these what you sent me?
yeah. And also, I'm not feeling great about this Jim Montgomery thing. I am buying into the conspiracy theories a little bit. That's coming up next on the Cam Show.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. That's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level when we shut down to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
Welcome to a special edition of the Doomsday Podcast. Look at this. We got one of the great golfers in the world, certainly one of the great pass rushers in NFL history.
But he also had a vision for you. And so it was like you had the best of both worlds, right? You had somebody on you early, and then you had somebody who was maybe more relaxed.
What were a couple of your biggest takeaways? The person you referred to that I spoke with, I've spoken to some personnel people and general managers of the league to get some, independent, objective assessments of the players the Cowboys picked, and we'll go through that.
Has the general manager changed at all in the Bradford?
Nope, it's been the same since I was here the last time.
Yes, we are back. It is the Cam Show. It's Rogue Media Sports Network. Oh, now we're getting something set up here. We got all kinds of things going on here at the Rogue Media Sports Network. But Zach, I want you to hear me out on this. I've come across, so Instagram sucks now in a lot of ways. I get pissy about what is up on my timeline and what is not. As most of you know, it's not really your friend stuff that's popping up first like it used to be. It's sponsored stuff. It's based off your likes and what you're sending to other people. And it's all an algorithm, and it doesn't come up with your friend stuff, which really sucks. Like I had a friend of mine, his sister, who I'd known all growing up, had a baby a couple weeks ago. And last week it showed up at the top of my timeline, or this like the second thing on my timeline. I'm like, oh, that's so great. And I liked it. And it says the post was from 11 days ago. I'm like, well, that fucking sucks. That
You're
makes
just
me
a
look
little
like
behind
a
on
creep,
that, yeah.
man. What the hell? And like, this is not that this is the closest person in my life, obviously, but like, that's the kind of thing I'd prefer to see, at the top of my timeline than what I'm about to show you, I guess.
Well, I just saw what the pictures are. I didn't watch any of it.
Oh
so this
my
is gonna
gosh,
be
this
interesting.
is incredible. So this is called the AI Jukebox, and that's the name of the account. And I get this stuff all the time. Do we have the Hank Hill one first?
Yeah, is that what you want?
Yes, just play it. I don't.
I'd give up forever to touch you, 'cause I know that you feel me somehow.
You're the closest to heaven that I'll ever be, and I don't wanna go home right now.
And all I could taste is this moment, and all I can breathe is your light.
Sooner or later it's over, I just don't want to miss you tonight. And I don't want the world to see me, 'cause I don't think that they'd understand.
Where everything's made to be broken,
I just want you to know who I
am. Do we have Mike's mic? We don't have to pull him up.
Yeah.
He's Mike Hamilton of the Bois King of the Hill podcast. Do you approve of that?
So no, I don't approve of it. I think that I think it's an abomination to God. But other than that, it's great.
You'd like that kind of.
We actually did a Friday episode one time where we did nothing but those kind of things.
Really?
And yeah. And it's
I'm
like
thinking this could be the future of Rogue.
It could be, yeah. I
I
tried. Oh, geez, there I am.
I
tried real hard to make it I tried real hard to make shows with AI, and I've done some of that, but they're all pretty awful, but this is a new height for AI. That's
incredible, man.
This is what you got to think AI was invented for. Right here.
Hank Hill, the last true American.
Yeah
Gru,
uh-huh.
Mr. Krabs,
the doctor
And
guy.
It's Dr. Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb.
Doofenshmirtz.
Of course, Zach knows that.
Yeah.
He's 10 years older than me.
And Zach, you said they were playing where?
It looked like they were playing in the pirate ship at Raymond James Stadium. Did it not?
No other place.
Super Bowl
that's
halftime show.
where else are you gonna have this?
But it's like just off in the corner. They're making everybody just gather around the pirate ship.
And if you thought
Silverdome, right out.
Like
Astrodome,
Silverdome?
closed.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Where else are you gonna have it?
What is big enough? What is a big enough stage for those guys? Truly.
Yeah, it's got to be a pirate ship or something.
That brings the Mr. Krabs home field advantage. And
Oh, that's true.
Well, and the other day, or you know,
Gru's kind of like a pirate.
they try to do the Treasure Island in Las Vegas. They took the pirate ship down. I mean, you know,
Are all of them considered like villains
said-
except for Hank?
it
by
said
the way, too?
dads.
Yeah,
He
I
did
think they're
say
focusing on the
dads.
dad's part of it.
But then I'm
Oh,
thinking,
okay.
Mr. Krabs is not a dad.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
is.
he is.
Is he?
He has
Pearl.
Pearl. Yeah.
Okay,
the
well,
giant
I don't
one,
know
she a
anything
shark?
Single dad.
Or
And then
She's
what
like
about
a
the
whale.
Doofenshmirtz? Or
Yeah, he
whatever?
has a daughter. I met the
Okay.
voice actress that played his daughter at one point in time.
At the
so-
Super Bowl?
Wow.
No, it wasn't at the Super Bowl.
At the Super
it was
Bowl.
at a Comic-Con here
That's
in
where he
town.
meets
Every-
people.
Every
I met-
story Zach has about somebody he knows.
I
is
met
at the
him
Super
and the
Bowl.
guy who played Zach from the original Power Rangers.
Anyway, if you thought I had just one of these clips ready to go, Mike, you
Who's
would
the guy that did
sorely mistaken.
who's the guy that did Big Butts? No, not him.
Sir Mix-a-Lot?
Who's Just Friends? That guy.
Bismarck.
Bismarck. The
Yeah,
late
I met
Bismarck.
him at a Comic-Con one time.
Really?
Bet
Now
Biz
that would be
Marquis.
cool.
And then I met the guy from Gabba Gabba Hey or what?
Yo
you know,
Gabba Gabba?
Yo Gabba Gabba, the one that wears the weird hat. Yeah, I met him. That was about it.
Let's get this second
The
clip.
highlight
in.
of my
This is Nickelodeon
existence.
nostalgia.
Yeah.
I never thought that it'd be so simple, but I fell away,
I always thought that it'd be too crazy, but I found a way,
If you open up your mind, it's gonna take some time to realize. But if you look inside, sure you'll find.
Over your shoulder, you thought I told you I'll always be picking you up when you're down.
So just turn around. Now that I know.
Oh my gosh, man.
Wow.
So that's other Nickelodeon character
That's
singing the
something.
theme song of a Nickelodeon song.
You know what?
I
what-
watch this shit all day.
It
I
makes
can watch
me-
these over and
Well,
over.
that's why the
and that song rocks, by the way.
That's why you're 11 days behind on your announcements. is 'cause
I
stuff
guess,
like that
but I
is-
think this is a chicken and the egg situation, and the Instagram came first.
It makes me a
Instagram
little
pushed
more
me.
uncomfortable
okay.
that it repeats it on the top and bottom. I don't know, for some reason that's very disorienting to me. Like
Like
it's trying to
the
fill the
Gaussian blur and
screen,
stuff,
but it's
yeah.
just the phone screen, and so the rest of it's black. But then the other things are on top and bottom. I don't like it.
Opus does that.
Yeah, Opie,
Mhm. It's too bad Drake Toll's kind of Drake Toll. That's not it.
where is Drake
It's
Toll?
too bad Drake Bell is kind of a creep.
Oh,
Oh,
I know he had
wow,
some
that would have
bad
been a
things
different.
happen
That would have
to
been
him.
an
Yeah, that
entirely different
I know
segment.
some bad
Yeah.
things happen to him. I sympathize with that, but that is a great song, man. And I will just watch these
Is that
all
what-
the time. That and this, that you've seen that giant fat guy who sings on Instagram, and he does the whatever that wrestler thing is. It's time to play the game.
Mm.
It's time to play the game.
Why haven't you had the Colts guy on
And he
here
just
yet?
does a bunch of those.
I haven't seen that yet.
Like, if the Colts played in Boston, I would do that.
No. I'm
What
just saying
Colts guy?
that Colts guy. We just did this.
That's great, man.
There's no reason not to have the Colts guy who is
Oh,
He is
who's
tough
singing
to
the
book,
song?
man.
Yeah,
This is the Colts
Ah,
fan of the year. It's
Colts,
probably
I
better than the
love.
McAfee show.
he's great.
He rocks that.
You know what? The dude has sold completely
And-
out to the Colts. He's the biggest fan. It's great.
yeah. I
And you
mean,
know what?
It's easy to make fun of. It's hard to appreciate.
You know what I noticed?
hard to appreciate is a good point. Yes,
So Mike doesn't like them because they get stuck in his head. So I
Yeah,
send
that
him,
is true. Yeah.
So I send him the song every week when
those
he
Colts
posts it.
things. Yeah.
And what I noticed about the
Thank
last
you for
one
not sending it to me, by the way.
is at the end he always goes, "Nay."
like he's a Colt.
But he had it one time.
He's a little pony boy.
that he just nailed it because he keeps that one on because I
Mm.
noticed like doing the song like it cuts to the nay part and there's something different in the background. And I'm like, he just uses the same nay week after week. Like he's got it on his desktop. Nay.
He does.
Well,
Well,
he's
he's probably
got
like, I can't top that.
He's got his template built, you
That's
know?
so
I mean,
good.
he's got to get his content out.
That's so good, man. I would definitely have Seth on.
There are tons of those King of the Hill things out there, though, like where they've done these AI versions of songs with various characters from King of the Hill singing them. There are so many of those. Like, and there, some of them are decent. But most of them are.
Put Hank Hill in. Man.
Most of them are just god awful.
Last Great American. Anyway, thanks, Mike.
Yeah, no problem.
I appreciate that.
You done with me?
Yeah, I've
Fantastic.
got to talk something Bruins before we get to Pete.
Go Bruins!
Yeah, that's what I'm always saying.
And not the 1993, 92.
Maine Black Bears
92.
hockey team.
Yeah.
No.
Hey, just real quick. Do you think about your hockey team when you pass this apartment complex over here by Baylor?
Kind of.
It's called the Bruin.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is weird to me. Like, a Bruin's a bear, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And they have like there's like kind of a break between the solid, like the vertical line in the B and the rest of the B.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's their logo. But I realized the other day it's not.
It's just two
like a
panels
pipe
that are
going up.
misaligned. It's under a
Like
pipe.
all the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
It's like on a
that sucks. It's just a regular B.
It's like on a billboard or whatever, where they get the things just slightly misaligned.
Dude, there was a billboard. I think I talked about it on the show. It was going into Boston in the summer, and it was one of those ones that like changes over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like not even the full digital ones, but will
the
just
mechanical
change over.
ones that flick. Yeah.
And it was like this great Dunkin' Donuts one. It's like Boston runs on Dunkin'. We all need our Dunkin', kid. And then it changes to it was to an Auschwitz exhibit.
Oh my god!
At the Museum of Science.
No.
And it was like Auschwitz, closer than you think.
We
And I
all
was like,
run on
that's
Dunkin'.
intimidating. And then it's like, but why don't you go to Dunkin' on the way?
Oh my god!
You'll need energy here at Auschwitz.
Unfettered
exhibit.
capitalism is what that
Like,
is. Yeah.
We've talked about child predator Karl Malone and Auschwitz so far in the show.
Hey, by the
Before we
way,
get to Jim Montgomery.
I want somebody to ring my bell here that I was right about all those players you talked about. I have always hated James Harden.
Dude,
I've never liked Russell Westbrook's
I was never into
attitude.
that style of basketball, and it's
Yeah.
actually going to be something I kind of talk about with Pete in the next segment.
Very nice.
But
segue.
Thank you. I'll go real quick on this Jim Montgomery thing, because I do want this time with Pete. I want all the time I can have with Pete. So there are rumors abound now that Jim Montgomery gets a 5-year contract with the Blues 5 days after he's fired by the Bruins. And the rumors are abound because there was extension talks throughout the offseason. He was in the last year of his contract with the Bruins, and that deal didn't get done. We played the sound a few days ago of Don Sweeney saying, yep, we had offers on the table, and the deal just didn't get done. And there's plenty of things that you can attribute to that. I think chief among them being kind of what we highlighted yesterday, that Jim Montgomery did not get to choose his staff, and that he didn't get to decide who would get called up or sent down to the minors. Odd. Very odd that your head coach doesn't get that kind of autonomy, especially the coaching staff. Like, you didn't bring in Jim Montgomery on a pinch the way that you did with Bruce Cassidy in the middle of the season. You had a coaching search in the summer, and you went and got Jim Montgomery. And I guess they didn't trust him because he was out of the league for a few years and was coaching in college hockey and whatever. But it was all the staff that was already in place, / Jay Leach coming up from Providence to be the assistant coach. Now, that's odd. And then you start hearing that Joe Sacco had some inkling in the summer that Jim Montgomery might get fired because, hey, they don't have a contract extension here. And again, lo and behold, he gets fired. 5 days later, he's got a 5-year deal with the Blues. Just got their first win with the Blues yesterday. And it was also kind of an interesting thing from the St. Louis standpoint. They announced the firing of their coach and the hiring of a new coach in the same post, in the same memo. And a 5-year deal, that's a hefty commitment to a coach. And that, again, tells me he'll have no problem picking a staff next year, probably. And no problems with the GM. They'll be on the same page, unlike they were in Boston for basically his entire time there. And like the draft process, the free agency process, he's going to be in on that. So when did Jim Montgomery know there was interest from the Blues is what I'm wondering now. You know, was it a situation of late in the summer, he's hearing about this and he's like, yeah, but you know, I've got a good team with the Bruins this year, I think. So maybe let's revisit this. If we don't work out a contract extension, we can revisit this because either we've got a good team and I can make a run with this team, or it's not good and I'm in the last year of a contract, so I'm going to get fired. Like, I wonder how much of that played into this in the last few days here or the last few weeks when the team was mailing it in and the message had run dry and all Jim Montgomery did was stand behind the bench with his hands in his pockets. I do have sympathy for him in his time in Boston, especially at the end here, because, again, I do believe that they were not on the same page, that he did not have the power he probably should have had as the head coach, and that the GM was not going to cater free agency, nor the draft, nor his trades towards Jim Montgomery's style of play. That became pretty apparent here this season. And now, the last two games, the Bruins win it ugly. They win it tight. They win it with defense. They kill off a 6-on-4 for over a minute to end that game in Detroit on Saturday. Like, that is probably how the Bruins should be playing. And it just wasn't going to happen with Jim Montgomery. But, like, they knew his coaching style coming in. You know, it's not like he changed the way he coached during his tenure with the Bruins. So I have a good feeling that someone from the St. Louis Blues made their interest known, maybe even before this season, but definitely well before he got fired from the Bruins. And that's going to rub a lot of fans the wrong way. He seems like a good guy, might be a good coach, but that is going to rub a lot of fans the wrong way that we don't really, and it's going to help the Bruins in terms of their public image of, you know, we don't really care what you feel about Neely or Sweeney. Like, this is the Boston Bruins. You do your job here until you get fired or resign if you're not going to get a contract extension. But don't be mailing it in and ruining our season just because, you know, you're hearing interest from another team and that, you know, when I get fired, I'm going to be able to hop into a situation pretty quickly here. And I'm sure he was hearing that through his agent, but that stinks. That stinks. It reeks, actually, of some dysfunction in this organization. And hopefully at least Joe Sacco can get them all on the same page and play a good, structured, defensive style of hockey, because that is how the Bruins are going to win. And maybe it'll be all's well that ends well, but that does feel weird and unsettling that he was able to get a job with the Blues that quickly as things were crumbling down in Boston for all of us to watch for a month. Anyway, the NBA has got some issues. I want to talk with an NBA expert, Pete Souza, about that next.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at 70 miles an hour. I was injured, had a concussion. The insurance company, they delayed. They were playing games from the initial conversation. They weren't going to help me. The biggest thing I learned through this is that you can't go through this alone. I called Daniel Stark. They were going to help me and everything was going to be all right. Daniel Stark got me 10 times the insurance company offered.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
It is Matt Mosley and it's the Obstructed View podcast, Rogue Media Network. I think they're learning that there's really no wonderful view of me. See, I feel like they think this feed's going to be really wonderful.
There must have been no BS, like 20 scouts, 15 to 20 NBA scouts there to see him, and he was top 5.
When your old number wasn't working, I went through various channels to track you down. So unfortunately, you can never get away from me. But I'm happy. Man. I'm happy to have you today.
Nah, thanks for having me. And you know we always family, no matter where I'm at.
I mean, yeah, a new coach comes in, they're going to turn the roster. I think that's just we've got all these transfer portal stats and what Dion did and what Fritz has done. I mean, that's the deal, man. That's the game that's being played nowadays.
Maybe a little bit unknown at quarterback. I mean, unknown to the rest of the world, but you know, he dove into the portal and got a guy who is super, super athletic.
South Dakota State's really good. Give us a little bit of breakdown about what they can do and what Oklahoma State needs to be worried about.
But look at that form right there. I need to say nothing else about this because I found one.
Pete Souza's here.
Cam?
On the Cam Show. You might know him from such films as The Pete Souza Show and Inside the 12. And The Payoff.
Yes.
And Baylor basketball play-by-play.
And we've got ESPN hoops tipping off next week.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Friggin' time, man.
So I got games Wednesday, Baylor women. Then Thursday, TCU men against Xavier in Fort Worth. And then
ranked Xavier team.
Yes. Sean Miller. And then St. Mary's at Utah Saturday night.
Very fun. Anyway, Pete, I do want to ask you about basketball.
Yeah, let's talk.
Like I'm
kind of excited about this.
So I call you an NBA expert because you worked in the NBA.
Yeah, I got my 3/4 zip. I look like an unemployed NBA GM right now, looking for a job at like.
Yeah. And you've got the burners too, so it's perfect. But you're an NBA guy in terms of like history. You've worked in it. You kind of know the ins and outs of the league. You still know a lot of people around the league, or at least how to contact them.
Sure.
Which is cool. But I watched a video this morning. It was like 12 minutes, so I didn't send it to you. I know.
Thank you.
How hotly contested that could be, but it was from a baseball YouTuber about how the NBA is not doing too hot this year, and it highlighted a few things. You know, load management, the in-season tournament, the real no need for a regular season. It feels because they don't have like the NBA in-season tournament doesn't do much of anything. They don't have like a good all-star game or dunk contest anymore. Like there's just not a lot in the season. Like for most of those
this
teams,
is all very valid. Yeah.
And a lot of it was also focused on LeBron and Steph Curry being the two ticket draws still, the two major draws, and they're just past their prime. And there's no one that's kind of stepped up in that. So you've been critical of the Sixers and, you know, the way they play and kind of all of this. Now I root for the Celtics. So I don't notice nor care that the rest of the league has dipped in popularity because I've got a team that can win the title.
Yeah. And you watch the NBA every night.
I watch the Celtics all the time.
Yes.
To be fair, I don't watch much outside of the Celtics the way I would for like
college. But if you're
but
let me interject. If you're watching your team every night, you get to know the NBA because
sure.
Yeah. So
I'm not parked in front of the TV on Wednesday nights for NBA doubleheaders.
No, and that speaks to what we're talking about. Or what
that's more what it is. So I personally felt that LeBron Curry era it didn't do much for me. The finals were great matchups, but only one of them was a great series, and it was like the same two teams every year. I just don't look back fondly on that. What do you think is wrong with the NBA right now? Because it was at its peak a couple years ago in terms of popularity.
Yeah,
it crushed it, blew baseball out of the water for the second most.
It still is more popular than baseball.
It is.
Yeah, and it still is.
What's happening with it right now?
Well, I'll tell you. So I have to say this first because you got to give context. It still is super popular, A ton of money coming in.
Mm-hmm.
It is not as popular as it was, and I think there are a lot of reasons why. Starting with. It feels very, very packaged. It feels like a lot of these dudes are bubble wrapped. So it's not like even we get to know them a little bit now, but it's, the guys who are interesting now are the ex-players who are coming after the current players on like their podcasts and stuff. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But like the current players, we just don't get to know them that well. There's no like,
which is wild because that should be the advantage that basketball and the NBA has over everything else.
yeah. And they don't
You see these guys' faces all the
Yeah.
time. You see, it can be one-on-one in games. Like,
it's too image driven. Like everybody's worried about like I think everybody is worried about how the public perceives them, how good a guy they are, how they can make money, what kind of deal they're having. And it's just like not
how they're bros with the players.
Oh,
from those
that-
teams. And like, I
that-
do get kind of, I don't want to say bugged. Bug's not the right word.
Yeah.
But I'm like, do we need like hugging and kissing after games? Like,
No.
like nobody doesn't like the opponent anymore.
No, and
There is something to that.
100%. I honestly, that drives me insane. And it's just, and I don't know, I hate this term is so overused, but like there's just not that many dogs anymore that play in the NBA. And part of the problem too, Cam, is the money. I mean, guys are getting paid so much at such a young age still. And I will say, like this generation of guys, they're way more mature and like put together. And like, it seems like you might even venture to say like better dudes than some of the young guys coming into the league. Like when I was a kid in like the 90s and stuff,
Could
like,
be, yeah.
yeah, but I think they're really smart, which almost to their own detriment. Like everything is very well thought out, and you don't get the unadulterated version of these guys. It's rare that you do, and the load management has something to do with it for sure. The ticket prices, like, I mean, it's really simple when you boil it down. I don't want to pay so much money to go see a star who might not play. That's so screwed up.
That's a big part of this.
Like, dude, I'll give you an
Big time
example, a
part.
personal example. When I was, and here's something, I heard something on the radio too that you'll love this on the way over. When I was a kid, Mr. Sack, Ben Sack, piled me and 6 of my buddies in the car, and he took us to see Michael Jordan. Right? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
People used to joke and be like,
Ben
"Is his name?
Sack?
Is his name Harry?" You know.
Come on, that's really good.
But he was the best dude in the world. He piled a bunch of us in the car.
What was his relation to you?
TJ Sack. Oh no, he was just some guy that hung out with us. No, TJ Sack was one of my best friends, and this was his dad.
That would be
And he was an awesome
local guy.
he was an awesome like sports dad. He was like always playing with us. Anyways, he took us to see Michael Jordan on like a Saturday night. I'm sure even back then he paid a good amount of money, but we were in the upper level. Like if Michael Jordan hadn't played because he was sitting out, it would have changed the way that I viewed the NBA and the league as a whole. And I think we're seeing some of these younger people who have been like bitten by that bug sort of grow up a little bit. And there's not the connection to the players, I think, that there used to be. Here's another thing, dude. I was listening to NBA radio on Sirius on the way over here. Ron Rothstein was on. He was the first coach of the Miami Heat, was actually talking about his first job as a scout for the Hawks. He worked for Hubie Brown and Mike Fratello, but his first assignment was at Boston Garden. And he talks about how amazing Boston Garden was. But then he talked about when he was with the Pistons and Chuck Daly. And he talked about how when we were battling with the Celtics, they couldn't beat us in Detroit and we couldn't beat them in Boston. And I thought to myself, no, you teed this get off my lawn up for me. But I was like, where is that home court advantage anymore? Like it doesn't.
Philly was a great one, by the way. The Celtics could never win at the Spectrum.
Dude, but now it doesn't matter.
It does not. You're absolutely right.
Like, so think about that. Like, it doesn't matter. You're going to play at country clubs, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these places used to be scary ass places to go play. And now it's just like, whatever. It's 50-50.
All the buildings look the same.
Yeah.
You have that corporate crowd. Nobody's close to you that's going to be getting on you.
No.
Not really. It's different. It's kind of what I talked about with you a few weeks ago when I asked my dad. I was like, why were like atmospheres were just better back in the day? Like, why were sports fans just better? And he's like, no, it's just more better sports fans were able to go to the game.
Yeah. You brought up
just sit out and buy tickets.
Here's a couple things too. Like we talked, it's so interesting the way we treat our stars. Kobe Bryant and that rape case, right? Like that was eventually dropped and settled out of court. like a star player probably would not survive that today, and rightfully, wrongfully so. You could litigate that all day long, but that's an example of the power of social media and the microscope these guys are under today. Like there will be no chance. Like if that happened to one of our stars today, they would get canceled or whatever. And I think that, again, right, wrong, or indifferent, it contributes to the version of these guys that we see and that we get, because I think that they're a little on eggshells. Dude, one of the best stars in the NBA, a guy who gives no Fs, is Kevin Durant, which is like, you could say he's a wuss or whatever, but at least he tells us where he's at.
I mean, that's true. That's true. I can't argue that.
He doesn't care. Like he says what he feels like. And
I'm just thinking about like some of these 80s guys who would have had fucking like people dedicating their Twitter accounts to like Adrian Dantley, like Alex English Muse, and just making arguments about how Alex English is better than Larry Bird.
Yes, it would have been good for some of the guys,
videos.
really.
It's like, golly, man,
But
like that would be awful.
I pulled this up for you. I'll be interested to
Please,
see what you think of this.
please.
So these are the players that lead the NBA in scoring right now. Giannis, LaMelo Ball, Anthony Davis, Joker, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jason Tatum, De'Aaron Fox, Luka, Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns. Okay, so you got two dudes, and I'll say it, two white guys on that list.
Mm-hmm.
If those two guys were from America, it would change the way that we view the NBA. Really. But they're from overseas. They don't care to be part of like the NBA fanfare. Those guys just want to go home after the season's over.
Right. And it doesn't make any difference to them if they play for the Nuggets or the Lakers.
Isn't that great?
In a lot of ways.
I mean, it's great, but it also kind of sucks for the NBA. Like, you know, if Luka Doncic was Luke Donald and he grew up in Iowa or Indiana, people would be like,
icon.
Yeah, think about
like
that.
Hick from French Lick type of icon. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that the European invasion, as you could say, back to your Beatles days, has interestingly enough affected the league in some kind of way. I think that there's a case to be made for that.
And therefore the NBA does great overseas, but it's not. Like, I just think back to, and we got to wrap it up here, but I just think back to those year after year matchups with Steph and LeBron. And it's like, those teams did not hate each other more so than just, hey, we face them every year. But like the Celtics.
But it was better than it is now.
Yeah. And you're right. But like the Celtics and the Lakers in the 80s, man, like they fucking hated each other.
Yeah.
And they didn't meet up and work out together in the offseason. Like
No.
they hated each other. The Celtics and the Pistons hated each other. The Lakers and the Pistons and the Bulls. Like there was something all the time. Like the Jazz and the Bulls.
When
they
Isaiah
didn't like
messed
each
up
other,
his
man.
ankle in the NBA Finals, right? When it was so bad, when the Pistons were playing the Lakers, he actually went to the LA Raiders training facility and got treatment there because Al Davis and the Raiders were like, we'll take care of you. You won't get the best treatment here in LA from like the Lakers guys and stuff. Like, we got you.
Hell yeah.
So like, think about that. You know, nowadays,
By the way, they would have won that series.
nowadays they'd be hanging out in the, like, you know, the home team's training room all day, maybe, or it's just different.
It's wild. And I don't know. I guess it's great for society and everything, but it's not great for sports.
It's not as bad. It's still making a lot of money. I sometimes look in the mirror and I wonder if something is wrong with me. That the NBA.
I get that too, man.
Yeah, I'm a gimmick. It's a gimmick. I'm annoyed, but I think that could be me. Just, you know, my dad probably felt the same way. So whatever.
Yeah. Thanks, Pete.
Yeah, no problem.
I do get that feeling a lot of like, you know, my dad probably did the same thing, and I'm just
Totally.
old. So anyway, that's Pete Souza. 1 p.m. on the Pete Souza Show on YouTube Live. I'll be back here tomorrow. Last one before the Thanksgiving holiday.
If I ever get a job doing NBA play-by-play, we'll delete this. We'll Zach take this down.
Yes. Well, if I get any job, I'll probably have to delete most of this. So it is the Cam Show. We'll be back high noon Eastern tomorrow, 11 a.m. Central Time, live on YouTube, and then wherever you get your podcast. So be sure to like and subscribe and ring that notification bell to get notified.
You have a great job,
whenever
by the way.
We're
Cam.
dropping.
I don't want
it.
to hear that crap.
I do.
You have like a lot of jobs.
I know. I like this job. I'm not saying that.
It's not crime poverty.
Just saying,
all
like,
right?
if I get a play-by-play job, I'm going to have to delete most of this. I talked about Karl Malone's predatory behavior today. We'll see you tomorrow on the Cam Show.
You are here with your shoot first point guard, Corey Dickman.
Also, if you're not creating new fans in a small market, then you're not creating that base of people to go to games and pay for merchandise and pay for stuff and concessions at the Moda Center and yada yada.
Yeah, let's talk draft. That's the only thing we have to look forward to.
The only thing we have.
That's what I will teach my son. You will teach your daughter as Blazers fans. It's like, look, the two most exciting times of the year for us are the draft lottery and the draft itself. Like, here we are. This is our thing. Give me some memories and thoughts. I know you had mentioned the first time you had met Bill. What were some of those first memories that came back when you heard the news?
Coming up on the Pete Souza Show, Rogue Media and ESPN's own King McClure talks with us about the NBA draft.
Team is banged
Are
up
you
a
getting
bit.
undressed while we're doing this?
No.
What is happening?
And it's partially because the team has like pretty kind
Wrong
of big problems.
podcast, Nick. Wrong podcast. When you're a golfer, what is the point of no return? He was the best play-by-play announcer around, in my opinion, and he made me want to continue to watch.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. That's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We are Rogue Media Sports.